Now I'm going to work on the starter. Supposedly the starter on this is it's a bit worn out, I guess. It just won't crank up when it's hot. You know, it barely cranks over when it's cold. So as you can see in the picture here, yeah, those terminals, they're not looking too good. The wires, nah, they're not looking too good. I'm thinking about definitely rewiring the starter completely. I don't know if I'll get to it today. I'll probably start it today and maybe finish it up Tuesday or Wednesday or something. Alright, I'm going to first disconnect the battery and I'm going to take the wires themselves. Boy, that's pretty loose right there. Huh. Well, I'm going to take the wiring off the battery and the battery terminals. That's pretty rough. I wonder if that's why it's cranking over so hard. I don't know. I'm still gonna rewire it because the wiring, well, it's seen better days too. I don't know if you can see this. Hold on a second. Let me adjust the camera. Look what they have here. I don't know what they got going on here, but wow. So I'm gonna rewire it. Probably should have told you. Anytime you disconnect the battery in your car, you're always gonna want to disconnect the negative first, then the positive. Whenever you're taking your terminals off your battery post, if you can't get it to turn off, sometimes all you got to do is stick a screwdriver right in between your terminal and give it a twist like this, and what it does, it opens it up and it comes right off. So this one, well, it's got a hole right through it. See that? That's pretty rough. So maybe the starter's good. I was gonna replace the starter and rewire it, but I might just try rewiring it first. I don't know. While I'm down there, I might as well change the starter. I bought the truck and it came with a starter. The previous owner thought that the starter was bad. Maybe it's not bad. Maybe it's just the wiring in these terminals. I don't know. What do you guys think? Battery looks like crap, but it does crank over, and it seems like it's got lots of power in the battery itself. Those terminals, boy, they look pretty bad. Battery post, yuck. Alright, so we're under the truck. We're looking at the starter. Travis is going to start working on it. We're going to cut the wires because I'm going to completely rewire it. These wires look pretty bad. They're frayed, so I'm just going to replace them. Go ahead and cut them, Travis. Oh, okay, here we go. I peeled back the casing on this wire here. As you can see, I don't know, hopefully you can see it in the camera there. Boy, is there a lot of corrosion down in there. Look at that. I'm still wondering if this ain't the starting problem. Because what happens is it'll barely crank over, you know, when it's cold. And when it's hot, you can forget about it. It ain't gonna crank over. And this wire right here going to the battery on the negative side would actually start smoking a little bit at the terminal. And this is where it was hooked up, something like this. And I'm wondering if it just ain't this wire. I'm gonna test the starter kind of half-ass right now. Alright, so I got the starter kind of rigged up here to give it a test on the battery. The positive terminal has to touch this terminal on the solenoid, and it actually is bypassing the solenoid, going straight to the starter. And of course this will go to the ground. So all I gotta do is set it on there, and we'll see if this thing turns. And we'll listen to it and see what it sounds like. It should be like lots of torque and a good noise, a good smooth running sound. See what it does. Sounds kind of bad. Let's try it again. Oh, I don't know if you can hear that or not, but boy, sounds horrible. I'm going to try the new starter and see what it sounds like. That's what it's supposed to sound like. This will work a lot better, I'm sure. This is a proper terminal tool cleaner. Little bristles in there. Clean up the post. Push it down on there and give it a turn until you think it's clean. Always turn them in one direction. Pick a direction and always turn it in that direction. If you don't, if you decide, oh, I'm going to turn it clockwise on this post and then counterclockwise on that post, what happens, these bristles in here will get all messed up and it'll just be a disaster in here. See how they're all spiraled one direction there. That's pretty much the way you want it to be. You want to push this all the way down to your battery. I'm going to clean the top of this battery up and we'll come right back. Alright, we just pulled the cable up from where the starter is, and this is what we got out of it. This is the wire that goes to the terminal. Right now I'm just taking this apart. This goes to the oxygen sensor. And I plan on replacing most of the exciter wire. This is what triggers the solenoid at the starter from your ignition, and this is what supplies power to the solenoid itself at the starter. So I'm going to replace this chunk of wire, and I'm probably I may just splice into this wire somewhere up here, or I'm just gonna go ahead and replace the whole thing, this whole wire. There's no sense of splicing into it, and I always give myself extra wire. I'm talking like an entire foot of wire at least, So when you take down that starter, you can take it down and then take the wires off the starter, not the other way around. Because sometimes starters, the manufacturers have a tendency to just give you just enough wire to hook the starter up while the starter's actually in place. And it can be a nightmare trying to loosen up rusty nuts on rusty terminals. Oh, it can be terrible. This truck's probably not so bad, but I've seen some other ones that are really, really tough to get to. And if you just had that extra wire, you just take 2 bolts out, let it down, then you can look right at it and use a wrench, do whatever you got to do without messing anything up. It's a lot easier just to give yourself, you know, an extra foot of wire. Alright, I got my starter wires taped together here. Now I'm going to put this conduit on it. And what I like to do is just get it started. And then you can kind of just pull it along. And it'll slip right over the wire pretty easily. So you're not sitting there trying to do the whole thing a little bit at a time. You do have to feed it down the wire occasionally. Alright, so I got some flux. I'm going to be putting a terminal on this wire here and attaching it right there. This is some old flux. I don't know if it's going to be any good or not. It doesn't look very good. But I'm going to jam some on there and see what happens. That should be more than enough. Almost need 2. Come over here and hold this like that. I think the solder's in front of you. Let's see. There we go. Can't be simple and just buy something and it works. I don't know if you know any of this. Here's a tip for you. When you buy a crappy little torch like this, first thing you do is take it apart after you fill it up because it comes empty. You take the little adjuster for the flame, you wiggle it up until it pops off there's like a little gear that it sits on. And then you move it over and you put it back down. And then that'll crank it up even higher. I've already done that once to this. Guess it needed done twice. Let's see what kind of flame we get out of this thing.
Hope it doesn't explode.
It ain't gonna explode. That's almost normal. I don't know if you can see that or not. That's almost normal. And I've had to turn it up twice, that little stupid lighter inside here. Alright, I finally got that wire on there. It was a complete nightmare. Fighting me every step of the way. I'm going to trim these back. And I'm going to put a butt connector in here.
Okay.
I got these butt connectors. They have like solder in the center. All you gotta do is heat them up and everything melts together. And it's actually like a heat shrink tube also. Alright, got this taped up. Everything's back in it the way it should be. Moment of truth. I'm going to have Travis go ahead and start it. Go ahead. That's all there is to it. Like and subscribe.
Okay, so I figured a good way to end the video would be to change the oil in the truck. Whenever you're working on the truck, you should always support it with the jack stands and not the jack itself.
I've never seen an oil drain plug like that before. Definitely aftermarket. Of course, I had my 93 F150 and the drain plug on it stripped out, and I had to replace it with an aftermarket one also, but nothing like that. That's actually pretty nice. I mean, you unscrew it, you know, 3/4 of the way, and it starts coming out, and you can just let it drain. It doesn't make a mess. It just flows straight down pretty much. It's pretty nice, actually.
While we let the oil drain out, I'm going to grease the front end. Not first. I double checked everything. Everything's tight. Now I'm going to go and lower the truck. Alright, now we're going to put the oil in it. I got a fresh paper towel, and now I'm going to check the oil. You're supposed to start it after you run the motor, but I like to check it before and after. Just to see what we're at. Okay. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's over full. Which is good. I'm going to stick it back in and double check it. Yep. That's definitely over full. Put it back in there. There we go.
Start it now.
Now we start it. Okay, now I'm gonna check for leaks. Okay, looks like everything's good. So now we'll check the oil. And then we'll be done. Get this out. Wipe it off, stick it back in. Looks like it needs a little more. So from the looks of it, it looks like it needs a little more, but we can always put more in it.
It's fine.